Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. And actually, for Shikha, I believe it's good evening.
Yes, it's evening time. It's evening, 7:30 in the evening.
And we're 8:30 in the morning here, so we got you covered on both ends of the time zone. So wherever you're at, I'm so glad that you're joining us. We're on chapter 9 of the Worthy book that I have open in front of me because we're really getting into our own worth and what that means. And I just love this chapter so much because I was such a people pleaser. But Shika, before we dive into that, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm joining in from India. I'm a photographer for 25 years. I'm founder Mothers United Movement, which is called MUM, under which I have taken out a book called 100 Self Portraits, 100 Dreams of Mothers Who Dared to Express. It's a book about which came out during lockdown, where I interviewed 100 moms continuously for 100 days and across the world, and then brought 40 of them to India to launch this book with me, where they express themselves through self-portrait. And then I come to self-portrait is a method that I use. Through that, I'm just getting. I don't like the word teaching, but I'm this opening path that took me to releasing and becoming free of all the doubts and self-image that's stopping me from dreaming. So that's the short I can say about myself. And yes, I'm coming up with the Mum Summit, just like Michelle is coming up with the festival, and absolutely excited to be part of both the Mum Summit and the festival with Michelle.
So am I, and I just love they're overlapping with each other, but I love that we're just diving into both of them, and like it's all about there's no of this competitiveness or anything like mine versus yours. It's like let's do this and merge it all together and lift each other up, and that's what this is all about. And I think that's the feminine way that we've been kind of missing along the way as women as we've gone toward this masculine way, and now we're bringing in that. So I'm Michelle DeKeyser from Connecting Mamas, where I'm have the podcast Mama Genius Hub, and bringing to you the Mama Genius Festival because it's all about figuring out what is our genius, living in it. So then now we be detectives and help our kids figure out what their genius is instead of projecting our hopes and dreams or even what we think our kids want, instead discovering what they truly want. And I think that's what this is all about. And coming down to Jamie's chapter of being the people pleaser this time. I need the title is The Lie. I need to please them in order to love for them in order to love me. And I think that's so true, especially as moms, that we're so busy trying to think of what others want us to do. So then we end up being resentful. We end up being sad, depressed, lonely because they're so busy people pleasing. I can remember this one time. I had a sick friend and I felt this like in me that like she kept posting on Facebook, like people who brought her food or something like that. And I felt this need in me, like I had to do this, but it was like this like nervous energy in me that was like leading me. And I felt so distraught. And I had Bella with me. We're going to the grocery store and I'm like, I don't even know what she likes. Like, I don't even know what to pick up for her. Right. So I'm just randomly picking some stuff. Right. And Bella's with me, helping me, and we're having fun though at the same time. But then we get to our house and I drop the food off and like we're kind of chit-chatting, but I couldn't wait to leave. Like this energy in me was just like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? But I felt like this need to do it. And it was like this whole like direction of it. I think this chapter kind of leads into that feeling of when we have those inside of us, like this calling to do this, but it doesn't feel right, but we do it anyways. And then as soon as we left, Bella was like, why did we even do that? I'm like, I don't know. And then she posted on Facebook and I was like, I didn't even care. Like it was like when we do these things and it's like, it brings out the wrong energy and the wrong, like just, it doesn't feel right.
Right. And it's so uncanny. I have to tell you this, Michelle. I read this chapter today only, but just this morning, some conversation with my husband over a coffee in a coffee shop just went on to the fact that I said, why am I pleasing a particular person for past 13 years of my life? And I've realized it that I'm just doing it to please her. I do it in the name of maintaining relationships. We do always do that. We do think sometimes it is people pleasing, but we always hide it sometimes under the thing by saying, oh, we're trying to maintain relationships. We're just trying to be nice. We just, forget about it. And we constantly trying to fit in to something that we think they think of us. It might not be real. A lot of sometimes we think they think that about us, like it's exactly what in self-portrait workshop. We think that they're thinking about my broken truth, which they're not even seeing. But we just keep like hiding things up when we've just created this big monster in front of us. And then that monster is demanding things from us that we are not even like aligned with. And just then I read this chapter, I was like how synchronicities works, that just in the morning I said I was done with it, and I read this chapter, and then I related and I smiled, and I'm like, "Oh, I can talk for hours on this chapter." I think many people just have created these big images of people who are judging them, and they don't want to be judged, and then in relation we will try anything so that they don't think what we think they're thinking of us, if it any makes sense what I'm saying. you
Yeah,
know
it's so true. And actually, I've been listening to Lisa Nichols. Funny, and I was trying to remember it, but it's Yana. So you're not alone. You are not alone. And so, like, if you're feeling some of the things that we're saying, or like, put that in the chat as well, because it's like us recognizing that we're not alone. But exactly that feeling is the same thing as with my stories. Like, it's this feeling inside of you, like this urge to do it, but then you're like that energy, is just like this weird kind of energy driving you, and it just feels wrong. Like, not that the action is necessarily like bringing food to her wasn't like a bad thing, but it wasn't the right thing for me to do at that moment, because I was doing in my own body, I was doing it for the wrong reasons almost. Like, it wasn't that I was just trying to be nice and helpful, because I mean I've done that plenty of times and I've never felt like that. I felt joy by bringing someone else food. But this specific time, it just felt like I was trying to do it for something. I don't even know what it was, but to have that again when we're giving, it's because you want to give without that feeling of rich, like because you want to. And if you
yeah.
don't want to do it, that's when I love how we get into learn to stop people pleasing can start with small steps, including learning to listen to your inner voice, which in that story was like, what the heck, my inner voice was going haywire and I was ignoring it. Committing to speaking your truth, remembering you can't please everyone, identifying your priorities, setting boundaries, practicing saying no, spending time alone, making a commitment to yourself to prioritize your own needs and strengthen your own self-worth. And I think that's what it really comes down to, because even when we're trying to people please, we're doing it in a like realm of what we think they want. And they might not even want that. Like, she might not even want food that day or whatever it was, but it was me trying to project something. And so by being inauthentic, I suffered from it. She felt kind of awkward because we talked about years later, like we talked about it, and she was like, yeah, you seemed really off that day. Like, and I was like, the energy, like, she's like, it didn't feel right to her as well. Like, and that comes across when we're trying to really people please. And then it actually detracts the person that we're trying to please, because it's not authentic. It's this hurried friction energy that we're trying to, like, I got to do this. I got to do this. And that never comes off right. So when we start to set those boundaries by saying no to those things, when we listen to our inner voice, that's when we start to propel ourselves forward. Because if we're doing authentic, like the friends I have brought food to, like, it was a good exchange. It was us laughing, fun, them excited by that. And you can feel the difference between the situations. And so you want more of it where you're being yourself and doing it because you want to give, not because you're expecting something in return.
Yeah, and when you're saying that speak your truth, get the boundary, say no, and there is something that always it's something that I've noticed, and I have a program called Art of Noticing, but I've noticed this. What's happened with these words, Michelle, recently is like there's one thing that, yeah, let's stop pleasing people and recognize that we are doing it not because we want to, but because we want to please sometimes ourselves as well. We just try to please ourselves, and like you're just doing pleasing in all forms. But when you're speaking the truth, when you're saying that let's speak the truth and let's speak the boundary, now people take it to another extreme. But just trying to say that put your boundary, take to say no, speak your truth, does not mean hurt people, does not mean just go and in the name of boundary do things that and hide it behind it, and not do things that must be done even from humanity point of view, even from generosity, kindness, helping nature. Well, there's a lot of thin line between all that. understanding and being compassionate and empathetic towards other person, and then doing it out of that, even if you don't want to do it, but you know that I want to be empathetic towards, I don't understand the situation, but I want to show empathy, or I want to be compassionate, or I want to be nice to the person even if it's little not me, is a very different thing from pleasing people. So they are like two different things. And understand that things that are coming from kindness, that sometimes we don't understand on the other side, and a heart says be kind to that person even if it's not you, is also okay. It's not people pleasing. People pleasing is totally inward, inside. Everything is happening internally. Every monster is created outside by you. It's nothing to do with, say no, shut the door on the faces and say it's my boundary, I'm not going to please you, I'm not here to please you. And I see so many fights, like I'm in lot of social gathering, and then somebody has realized, oh, I'm trying to please somebody, because that's the latest talk about don't please people, pay boundaries. And then there is a lot of word slapping on boundaries, and like, and it's just, that's also
Mhm.
not nice, and you're just sitting there and wondering, yeah, but you don't need to put it on people's faces by saying that's my boundary, shut the door. So I just also wanted to clarify that, sit with it and notice, would you like to be kind, and that's the only reason you're doing it? Be very clear that this is a helping hand I want to give, or I'm not feeling enough, I'm not feeling worthy, I'm feeling that they will look at the side and I will not be the nice person, and then hence I should do it. That totally different thing. So I want to put that point across, because I find it sometimes amusing, sometimes annoying, sometimes triggering when I hear these words of boundary, not don't please people, shut the door, and then humanity and compassion and empathy just goes out of the door. So just wanted to
I
put
just
that.
I just have to say, Yana, to that, like you're not alone in that. And the other word that Lisa Nichols uses is BOL, which is breakthrough out loud. And I feel like that's such a breakthrough because I've had the same ideas with the words like boundary, vulnerability, and self care. Like I feel like those are three words that people are just using for the sake of using, but not really internalizing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be our definition, but really take those words and internalize a meaning for yourself. So I'll share my definitions, but that doesn't mean you need to like take mine, but think for yourself on what do those words actually mean to you, because there's a lot of just like placement of those words, like vulnerability, like you need to be vulnerable, but which I feel like vulnerability and boundaries go hand in hand, because like you don't need to be rude to someone, like you said, like shut the door in front of them and say this is my boundary, but that by putting up the boundary means that you don't necessarily have to share that vulnerability with that person anymore. Doesn't mean you have to be rude or insensitive to them. It just means that you don't necessarily have to share the deep feelings that you have with that person when they haven't reciprocated that, or it feels. That's what I mean by boundaries. I mean by setting up, knowing who should I be vulnerable with, actually asking myself this question. I gave it a little bit of a try. I'm going to pull back on how much I share with them because of how people show you who they are. And so they're starting to show me who they are as you have that boundary vulnerability dance with them, and you just decide what that is. That does not mean rudeness. That does not mean like just saying, just being unkind to people. And
Yeah.
I think there's a difference. And the boundaries really just comes into how vulnerable am I going to be with someone? And you do not need to be vulnerable with everyone. But caveat here is to really express your feelings and not to sit in them. You do need to be vulnerable with some people. You need to find your tribe, the people who you can have those deep conversations with. And as you start looking for them and having that little bit of dancing, if you putting a little bit out there, again, you don't need to shove vulnerability in people's faces and tell them your deepest, darkest secrets. You work up to that, and you have that till you have that trust with someone, and that's where boundaries and vulnerability come into place. It has nothing to do with how the treatment and the unkindness people treat to each other. Be kind to people, be
Yeah.
respectful to people, but then choose who you're going to share your secrets with.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we are trying to say here is, being kind doesn't mean you're pleasing. Like they are
Yeah.
just two different energies. Don't confuse it. Um, we need a lot of kindness, even out of our comfort zone sometimes, to step out and sometimes show our children, sometimes another person really needs that thing. And then you step out and say, okay, I will extend myself. What you think of me, it doesn't matter. I'm not doing it. I feel that you need help, and I'm here to help you.
Mhm.
And just
Yes.
walk out after that help and done with it. Not, oh, if I don't help, she'll think I'm a bad person, or he'll think I'm a bad person. That is people pleasing. If you are called to help anybody, walk there, help, leave. It's done. It's finished. The act is done. But the same act done out of desperation, done out of not wanting to do it, but just doing it because the other person will think that you're not good enough, or the world is looking at you and everybody's watching. How come she has not stepped ahead and done something about it? That is people pleasing energy, and that is what keeps consuming us. And then when we leave from there also, we're just like talking to ourselves in a lot of haste, and we're just constantly entangling ourselves into, why did I do it? I should do it. I should have not done it. I should do it. And that's what she's talking about, the fact that she felt her mother-in-law was so healthy, that she will judge her if she took the cinnamon roll and she ate it. But when she finally said, okay, and she did the fighting within herself, I'll do it, I'll not do it, and she ate the cinnamon, her mother in law didn't even care about what she ate, what she didn't. And then she realized that she missed on to so much of her relationship with her mother in law because of this friction that she created without really it being there. Or she also says that you can only take yourself on the table in a nice energy, and then things dissolve automatically. So don't lose out to relationships, or don't lose out to yourself in the process of pleasing. Notice, stop, hold on, see, am I talking to myself too much? Okay, I'm trying to get into the pleasing energy. Or am I feeling really hurt that the other person is in problem? Okay, let me just go, and that's a compassion energy. So this is to stop and to notice before the reaction or the action in that nervous energy that you were talking about. Very, very important to keep a check on that.
I want to point out two quotes from her. First of all, I want to be loved more than I want to be me. I feel like we focus on that a lot, which then leads me into my mission has changed me greatly from one of wanting to look a certain way to one of to feel a certain wanting to feel a certain way. Now, I think as you were pointing out really good questions, ask yourself. I have one more to add to that is when we're in that people pleasing energy, stop and because a lot of times it's the ego inside of us that's calling for that energy. And usually when we're in that energy, we without even subconsciously or unconsciously, we want something in return. So when we're people pleasing, we want some sort of validation. We want like I wanted the Facebook post. Like there's something behind the action. But when we pause to think about like, is my ego like asking for something in return? Then it's not giving. Then it's people pleasing. Then it's not giving from authenticity or from our heart. And then stop and ask yourself, is it something I want to do or something, or not to do it at that moment or whatever? But a lot of times just stopping to ask yourself, do I expect or want something in return? Because when we're giving, we can't, then it's not giving anymore. Like that's when it's turned over to people pleasing. Like we're doing it only for that return. And then that's where that negative energy comes into place.
Yeah, and I always say that the energy of giving is very different from energy of taking. So when you're in the giving mode, just give. When you're in the receiving mode, just receive. At that time, also do not question. Sometimes we also do receiving to please people, Michelle. We don't want something. I might not want to go to the parlor. I might want to sit and read a book. But just because somebody has gifted us something, we would just force ourselves to go because they will feel bad and everything. But even like it all hides in, that's why I said this chapter is very amazing because it hides, this people pleasing hides in everywhere. We go out of the comfort zone, we do something. I'm talking about a parlor, it could be a trip. We want to make a trip because we just like, we don't want to go, we don't have the energy, but we'll go for the trip because either fear of missing out or trying to please somebody will feel bad. And then we'll come back even more tired and burnt out from the trip sometimes. It happens many, many times. So now this topic can be spoken to. I think this can be a whole series on people pleasing because people should not judge themselves also when they people please. That's another thing people do. The minute they realize you are pleasing, they think we are a bad person, we are just not a great person. it's just some need of ours that's getting fulfilled, and it's just getting carried away. We just get carried away. So be kind to yourself as well. The day you realize you're people pleasing, it's okay to people please. That's your survival mechanism in your emotional zone, to be able to get through the day, or get through the meeting, or get through that person. You just do it to survive that particular moment, and that's all okay. But rectifying it, regenerating it, going backwards, and then coming to a place of harmony is the only way one can come back and out of this people pleasing mode. So that's what we have to say, and that's what I think we can talk about. It's a beautiful topic, Michelle. You can end with your thing.
If it was truly love I craved, I had no choice but to be all of me, even if she didn't approve of me. I had realized that I'd been projecting my insecurities on her, all at the expense of connecting us more closely as the alluring warmth of a cinnamon roll dwindled. And so I think it just really comes back to, if we really want to connect with people, the only true way to do it is being ourselves, because then we're probably connecting with the wrong people or connecting in the wrong ways. And then that's where boundaries and vulnerability come into play, is just how much do we do that to be our authentic self with the people in front of us, and making those decisions along the way. And it really just comes down to, as you were saying, we are imperfect. And if we make it, it's just more awareness and recognition and deciding how we want to be.
True.
And the more true we are to ourselves, the more we have conversations like Shikha and I are having, and you have those with your friends or other people, or you listen to these, whatever it is for you, the more we can be our authentic selves and expressing who we really are. And I feel that is the key, is the more that we can do that and communicate with each other in that way, it's what it's all about.
Yeah. And authenticity takes us to freedom and not to a problem. So please stop thinking if you're going to be authentic, it's going to be a problem for anyone. It's absolutely good to be authentic, because the minute you make the space of authenticity, and okay with who you are, and you can create a better world around yourself, and that peace just vibrates in every place that you go. So
I just
um,
keep thinking the energy around you, and once you start circling the energy, you just find your tribe, you find the right people you can be truly authentic with. And then if it's family or other people that you feel stifled by or something, that's just where you put up the boundaries. You're still kind, but you don't have to share your vulnerability with them. That's the difference. And
Can
it's
I
just,
say this, because it's a lot of women's group, and when I talk about vulnerability, I always say that you don't have to walk naked in front of everybody. Let's take that example. Everybody doesn't need to see you naked. That's not how vulnerable people suddenly try to get and then feel odd. You can only show parts of you, uh, depending on what kind of a crowd you're going to or whatever, right? And just because we keep our clothes like that, even our vulnerability can be kept in its own veil and its own thing, and it can only be shown when you feel safe and you feel free and you feel you can. It's a very crude example, but it just makes the point very clear. Your clothes, your vulnerability is for a reason. Not everybody needs to, just in the name of vulnerability, going out there and then hurting yourself, because suddenly you realize they can't even see what you're trying to show them. It just hurt yourself. So find the people, find the space sometime, find the energy, and then share that vulnerable moment with people. And also remember the distinction between kindness and people pleasing. It's two different things. Pay attention to this line a little, and you'll realize it's just two different things. And don't beat yourself up if you realize you're a people pleaser. I do it, like, I am all about authenticity. I find myself people pleasing, and sometimes I allow myself, like, okay, keep pleasing. That's all right. But then try next time not to do it. So be kind to yourself as well if you're doing it, and if you find yourself doing it. And then you just smile about it, and the energy just leaves. And actually, you stop pleasing that very minute, the minute you are kind to yourself. So
just
let's,
remember, it's
yeah,
just baby steps. And then as you keep doing it, it becomes easier. Just take the first baby step to find the person you can be vulnerable with.
right, right, right. I actually might just make some reels out of this particular talk of ours. This was very interesting today.
It
We can
was.
reels out, and we should just get it out, Michelle. I'm not very good at it. I know you're teaching in your festival how to do it. And I love the way you shared, so many nuggets for mothers to do it. But till the time I get good at it, I'll ask for your help. I think today's episodes have a lot of nuggets for people to really learn and share from. So maybe we'll try to take out some and make a reel and share it around. Yeah.
On that note, if you haven't picked up Worthy, please pick it up. Both Shikha and I Rehab Festivals coming up. We'll be sharing more of that. They're not till October, so we won't put links in yet, but we'll be getting those to you shortly. But keep in mind, it's about doing motherhood together, being vulnerable together in a safe space, and really learning how to do that again with people who understand and want to do it. And that's where it comes into play is find that space where you can, and then once you're more comfortable, then you can bring in other people or test it with people. But sometimes it's easier to start with people who are already in that mindset. And so that's where I recommend, if this is something you want to look into, is find a group, one of ours or someone else's that is already doing it, so you can start and get comfortable with it in yourself before you try to share it.
Right. Absolutely. All right. We'll catch up.
See you later.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
everyone.